Hello everybody, and welcome to the next section in the eOPSEC 101 course, OPSEC for Absolute Beginners. In the last video, we finally closed out our section on VPN kill switches with iVPN's kill switch for Android, and now we are starting off with social media. I anticipate this part to be quite lengthy, but I also think it's going to be quite interesting, because there's a lot of things we're going to talk about, and I feel like you guys are going to learn a lot of new things. So we'll go ahead and get started now. You can use any social media platform without having to ever worry about your privacy. On opposite day, I was I was thinking about doing the sound effects, like, a stock cheering sound effect and then the boo womp, but I only have 2 monitors as of right now, and I didn't want to go through all the trouble. So, oh well, boo womp. Alright, let's move on. All of the posts you make on social media, especially the most popular social medias these days like Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat, are instantly collected and stored by the platform owner. Most commonly stored data is browser data, location, interactions, and there's going to be a couple of other parts we're going to touch on a little further on, but that's the most commonly stored data. It was most commonly used for targeted advertising. So you would make a post and say something about Walmart, right? Or some cool new thing that you got. And Facebook's automated algorithm would pick up on this and they would say, oh, you'd probably be interested more in Walmart or something like that. So they would do away with either one generic part of their advertising campaign for you, or they would do away with one targeted one that they hadn't seen much success with and would add this new thing to it to see how it worked. That was, I mean, it still happens sometimes, but it's kind of a bit outdated nowadays. That's more of like a mid-2010s thing. Now, most commonly, it's used for data mining and third-party transactions. Data is used to create an online profile for you without your knowledge, and in some cases, even without your consent, whether you know about it or not. I think the best explanation for this would be Facebook, or maybe even a site like Bing, because what they would do is they would take your search data, they would take the ads you clicked on, the posts you made, any specific brands you ever typed in. So let's say like Aunt Jemima syrup. I don't know why that was the one that came to my brain, but there's one. They would take all of that and would build a profile on you. That profile would have your name, your location, your search history, the specific mentions, and they would use that as a template to A, sell off your data to other companies and make more profit, or B, use it for themselves in even better for them, targeted advertising. Controversial posts can affect you permanently. This doesn't really have anything to do with the privacy aspect of it. On the platform owner side, it much more has to do with you. You really have to be careful what you see on the internet. If you were in 2007 and you were going and dropping, the N-word, the F slur, and all that, no matter where you were at, then it probably has come back to bite you in the ass at least once. I've heard of so many people posting, things that go against like corporate standards. It doesn't even have to be something that bad, but it's just against like their viewpoints. One thing that comes to mind for me is Chick-fil-A. But like if you post something that against anything they stand for and they find out, depending on how bad it is, they're never going to trust you again. And that's at best. At worst, you're probably getting fired. And these days, a lot of these big chains like Amazon or Spectrum, they have what's the best word I'm looking for? It's like a group. That's not really the best word. It's a chain of employers that work together. So with internet, you've got like Spectrum and AT&T and Comcast and all that. If you get fired from Spectrum on bad terms, obviously you can never work at Spectrum again, but you'd be really quick to find out that you can't work at like AT&T or Comcast like I mentioned before, but in some cases you can't even work at some healthcare firms and some IT firms because they're all a part of that chain. And once you get fired from one place, it's going to be really hard for you to get hired anywhere else in the same field. And it surprises you how often that happens. But yeah, you definitely don't want any controversial posts to come up, especially today with as advanced as technology is, especially with these chain employer types. And most popular social media platforms track you without even having you to visit their platform. This is not a joke. This probably sounds like bullshit to you, But one way that you can test this, I'm not going to tell you how to do it now, but I'll explain it. If you download the DuckDuckGo app on an Android device and turn on their anti-tracking, and like for all of your apps, and like go on something like iFunny or Reddit or even Spotify, and you use it for like 30 minutes and come back and look at the anti-tracking, you'll see that you have trackers blocked from I'm trying to think of a specific one that's not well known in America. I'll leave that one out unless it comes to my brain. But you'll have trackers from Amazon, Facebook, Google, and in some cases, if you're using Netflix, Spotify will track you. I've seen that happen before. It's terrible. It's not even the point of like the platform itself is taking your data and selling it off. They're actually allowing these companies to gather information on you themselves. Now, they probably have a contract to do so, but it's ridiculous. If you, I don't recommend anybody here installs iFunny specifically because it's a terrible platform, but if you install or if you use iFunny and you use that anti-tracking feature, within 30 seconds, you'll see like 500 block tracking attempts from 20 different companies. It's nuts. It's horrible. And in some cases, if you disable some of them, you won't even be able to use the platform anymore. You'll have to disable that anti-tracking before the app even works correctly for you. It's nuts. Now we're going to start with a few specific cases. I've got Facebook, Twitter, or X, and Snapchat in here. So we're just going to go ahead and get started on these. Facebook, you cannot request to have your data removed. You can delete your profile. You can go onto your own profile and delete your own posts, but it's still in their servers. And as far as I know, at least as of like a year ago, you could email them and say, oh, I'd like to have my data removed. But unless you're in California, they're not going to do it. I swear to God, they're not going to do it. This may not apply if you're in the European Union or California, but the other 49 states of the United States and anywhere outside of like Western Europe, they're not going to do shit. They will ignore your email. They will never get rid of any of their information on you. Even if you used a third-party data removal site like Delete Me, I think is one, and you use that, they can go out there and delete mentions from you from like search engines, but even they can't contact Facebook and have your information removed. Another case, which this is definitely uncommon, but it still happens. If you're in the United States, you could contact your Secretary of State and have them reach out to some of these companies like Facebook and Google and have them delete your profiles. And Facebook and Google most of the time will comply and just delete your information outright. But even in that case, they won't remove your information from their servers. So that is one reason alone you should never use Facebook. But of course, there's more. They used photo recognition without an opt-out option. I don't know if you guys remember this, but back in the day, they had this thing where if you posted a picture and like tapped on it, it would show a square around what they suspected to be a person's face, and you could assign a name to that of one of your friends on Facebook. They used that, and you might not have thought about it much back then, but you could probably think about it now and realize, hey, they were probably using that information to improve their facial recognition. Now, I do believe there was some kind of lawsuit in the late 2010s that caused this to be removed. But even then, it wasn't until 2024 when Australian Parliament sued and won and got all of the saved facial recognition data removed from Facebook in just Australia. And since that was last year, I'm sure that they have hundreds of millions of people's faces still in their database, which sucks. They keep logs of both members and non-members, and the way they do this is once you access Facebook at all, it immediately saves your user agent. Now, most of the people watching this probably don't know what a user agent is, or they might have heard of it, but not entirely sure what it does. It will show your operating system, the browser that you're using, the date that it was accessed, the time it was accessed. In some cases, it shows your username on the device, especially with computers. If you're using a browser like LibreWolf or anything similar to that, then it either provides very little data or just outright fake data. But they do that not only for their members, but anybody that accesses the website. If you were using Mozilla back about a year ago and Facebook was in like your quick dial thing and you clicked it by accident, Congratulations, Facebook now knows much more information about you than you ever wanted them to. Health data was sent to Facebook without user consent. I think this was about 6 years ago. It was one of the, like, what's the best way to put it? You know how, like, you use certain applications or websites, and they're like, oh, well, you can use it if you sign in with your Facebook account. You don't even have to make an email to sign up. They sent your health information, including blood pressure and, I feel dirty saying it, but ovulation records to Facebook. They don't need to fucking know that, but it happened. And this was leaked in 2019. I don't think they even got sued for this. I think they just tried to sweep this under the rug and succeeded. But it's public knowledge, just nothing ever came of it. So, yeah, that happened. And plain text password storage. Now, this isn't really a privacy issue per se. It's more of a security issue. And you've probably heard of this before with as many companies have been caught. But the way that companies will store your data, in most cases, on the internet is, let's take your password, for example. They will encrypt your password. So if anybody, breaks into their servers and downloads it, instead of password, let's get it like a search bar. Instead of this being your password, I love Fortnite 99, it'll just look like that, right? That's encrypting your password. And in some cases, they would salt your password as well. So instead of it looking like this, it would just look like this. It's the same thing, but it's basically in the lightest way and simplest way possible. It's encrypting your encrypted password. So, of course, Facebook did neither of those. They came out and just flat out told everybody hundreds of millions of user passwords were stored plain text. So if anybody got into that server and downloaded the password file, all those passwords are right there for them to see with nothing to do about it. It doesn't have to break the encryption, doesn't try to have to desalt those hashes, nothing. They just got all your information. Now, there's just so much to cover about Facebook. There's been like 1,000 security breaches and everything else. So I've left a link to a Wikipedia article on the privacy concerns with Facebook at the bottom of this. I will probably just go ahead and post this in the comments section as well. That way you don't have to manually type this in. I'll have to manually type it in the comments, but you won't. So don't say I don't ever do anything for you. Now we're moving on to Twitter. I'm never going to call it X. I don't care. Elon Musk is not going to win that battle with me. And we're just going to start. It collects location data and, if on mobile, your biometric information. So your biometric information is things like your heart rate and your blood pressure and things like that. Why do they need to know that information? Can you give me one good reason why they would need to know that information? I'm waiting. And third-party analytics. So the way that third-party analytics works is websites that have Twitter integration, say if it has like, a share to Twitter feature or something like that. Well, in some cases, Twitter is going to know the information for your profile on that website or application that has nothing to do with them at all. Shares your device identifiers, such as the type of device and device username, with third parties. Self-explanatory. Most, if not all, privacy settings allow for collection of all of your data, if not actively disabled or changed. The way that they explain it is when you create a Twitter account, I'm not saying the letter, when you create a Twitter account, most, if not every single one of your settings is set to disclosure only. And the way that that works is if you go in the settings and look at the privacy policy, you'll see the disclosure that they have your data. You won't know unless you do that. They do not go out of your way to tell you, hey, we're taking your data. Because one, why would they? And two, I mean, that's just a horrible business practice if I'm being completely honest. So you would have to go into the settings and modify these changes. And 95%, if not more, of Twitter users are never even going to look at that. Because they straight up just don't care. And it collects metadata related to encrypted messages. This is in their new privacy policy since Twitter became X in 2023. They don't elaborate on this. They just say that metadata related to encrypted messages is collected. Even if I could explain it, which I can't, but even if I could, I think just leaving it as bare bones as that sends the point home better than any explanation would. And now we're going to move on to Snapchat. Now, I've never used Snapchat at any point. I've never installed it or anything. So I had to do my own research on this, but I found 4 major things. So the first one is Snapchat or Snap Map reveals your location in real time. Apparently you could like use the Snap Map and give it your location data and it would just update your location in real time. And people were doing it willingly. Why would you do that? Why do you want people on the internet to know exactly where you... I don't even care. Text and chats are not encrypted. Now, the reason I put, and I counted 10... Well, let me count again. Yeah, 10. I'm bad at counting, so... 10 question marks is because they say they encrypt your snaps. But they don't encrypt your texts and chats. How does that even work? What is a snap? Isn't it just like a public post that you make? Like, you know, making a post to Facebook? So they encrypt that. I don't even know how that would work. But they don't encrypt your chats? Sounds backwards to me, but it's been verified by multiple websites I looked at, so whatever. Pathetically weak gatekeeping features. And what that means is if you try to make a Facebook or Twitter account most times these days, they will either require you to verify your identity. Facebook will require you to submit your ID, and that's another reason not to use Facebook. And Twitter will straight up just block your account for suspicious activity within like an hour of making the account. And they will require you to submit a support ticket with like a verified phone number to get it unblocked. But with Snapchat, the only thing I've heard of that they do is they will block you from creating a new account if your IP is a known malicious IP. So if you use a VPN, my NetGator is going crazy, but if you use a VPN, or you just straight up like unplug and replug in your router after 5 minutes and get a new IP, you can make as many accounts as you want to. And that is horrible mostly for people that are under the age of 18. Because that is a huge opening for like PDF files to do whatever they want. At least on Facebook and Twitter, they try to negate it, but not on Snapchat. No, sir. And it used to not have a logout feature. So a lot of websites have also mentioned this. I didn't even believe it at first because I was like, one of the first things you want to have in an application is a logout and a login feature. But it's like Hotel California, right? You can check in, but you can never leave. Whatever. But now we're going to talk about what's next. So the first 3 videos are going to be how to delete a social media account on Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat. And I may do a few others by popular request, but I'm going to leave it at there for now. And then we're going to look at some alternatives. So we're going to look at Signal, which is a security by default messaging service. Session, which is built on Signal, but it attempts to remove metadata from conversations. Matrix, which has a different kind of encryption algorithm and is browser only, I think, or it's at least PC only. And we're going to look at a few others. Now, one that I did not put on this list, and if you are well invested in OPSEC and cybersecurity already, you'll know why it's not here. Telegram. We are not going to discuss Telegram here because the CEO of Telegram was arrested in France. I don't remember how long ago it was. I'm terrible with time. So I want to say it was like 2 months ago. It was probably more like a year ago. He was arrested in France and was not released until he agreed to unencrypt the vast majority of transit data and grant the French and British government a back door into Telegram itself. So we're not using Telegram. We're not discussing Telegram. We're moving on. And that's going to be the end of this video. So I hope this one did a good job of explaining like basically our roadmap for this section of the series. I know this was the longest video, and other than the IVPN for Linux video, this was the longest by far. But I felt like it should be a lengthy video because there's just too many things to talk about. And I hope you guys did enjoy this. If you did, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Either way, my name is James Martin. You guys have been amazing, and I will see you in the next video.